Welcome to the parent panel for the Ross experience. We're going to hear from three current parents today, whose children are currently attending Ross. And I will start with Ashley because Ashley's daughter is a senior and in my son's class, but also Ashley has two younger children and I think another one who graduated before.
Yeah. Well, I have five children. One's a Ross graduate. One is about to be a Ross graduate. My son left Ross in 8th grade for Deerfield Academy boarding school, which was sad. So his big quest was to find a university as close to Ross as possible. So he ended up at Brown because he found them to be the same. And then I have two babies who aren't really babies anymore, but they are to me. Calliope's in 1st grade and Maxwell's in pre-K.
Awesome. And we have Joseph Langdon, who's a parent of two pre-K twins. Joseph, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, we're twins in pre-K. We're on our 3rd year at Ross. We kind of came out here from the city deciding to do more of an outside experience for our kids and not just, have to play on a playground in a cage type of idea. And was really attracted to Ross for many of its attributes. And we have had a tour of the main campus. It's beautiful, but as you said earlier, we haven't seen the inside of the lower campus because it was actually closed when we started Ross. So yeah, being able to trust teachers when we pull up and the kids go past the hedge in the morning and we don't see them, again. They come home happy though, so that's always a good thing.
Awesome. And Patricia, if you want to introduce yourself and your kids' ages.
Hi, so I'm Patricia. I have a daughter in kindergarten and I have a son in 2nd grade. This is our 1st year at Ross. We've been considering, moving out here for a while, and with everything that happened, we made a move and my kids they're very happy. My son is he loves the school. I actually asked him this morning, what do you love so much about Ross? He's like, oh, mommy, there is a lot of green outdoors, outside my window. And I get to learn about space. And the math is amazing. I'm becoming super smart math. So I feel like the curriculum is unbelievable. It's just really nice. My daughter had, some issues, separating, when I drop her off and all the staff, everybody that works there is so sweet and so understanding, and they give so much support to us. So we are very happy with our decision. We're really happy with us.
Excellent. Thank you for all introducing yourselves. I realize I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Liz Larson, the Assistant Director of Lower School Admissions and also a Ross parent. My son is a senior this year. He's in the same grade as Ashley's daughter, and he started in 6th grade. I think Ashley was at the school already. And my other son has graduated from Ross and is now in college. So one of the things I wanted to ask our parent panel is, to identify maybe what kind of learner your children are, since you each have more than one, and how the Ross curriculum not caters to, but I guess, how they're absorbing their learning, how they're digesting their learning based on the curriculum as different types of learners. Who wants to go first?
I'm contemplating that. I'll go simply because that's actually a complicated question. When you have a complicated child, which my daughter Calliope in 1st grade is amazing, and she's so eager and intelligent, and she's so interested in things and in researching things and knowing more about them and taking things further. And one of the things that has just always been true about Ross, and I've always loved, is that there is no limit. Nothing about an education at Ross is finite. If a child's interested in something, then all of the support is right there for them to take it as far as they'd like to go and to integrate it into whatever other learning platforms that they're doing. So as it is right now, my daughter is really she's thriving. She cannot wait to get back to school the next day. And then she comes home from school and she brings it home. She brings it to the dinner table. We were climbing out of the car and I had no idea. I'd never taken the time to look at pine needles, but it turns out some pine trees grow one needle and some grow three in a thing. And then she had this whole explanation and it went on and she was enthralled. But again, the education is infinite. It's not finite, and it's there for the children's world of wonder. So that's been my experience.
Excellent.
For my kids, it's they're turning 4 in December, so we're still pretty young. But I can tell right now, Avery, our daughter, is a little bit more reserved and shy than Jackson. So the teacher is emphasizing getting her to be a class leader and singing in front of class and stuff like that. So they're dynamic enough that they are, trying to build on things that the kids need to excel at. And our son has no issue with being shy, and he is thriving and being the showman that he is, and as well as learning. It's certainly during the lockdown, we learned how hard it is to teach our kids. And within probably the first month, our guys were writing their names on their own pieces of work, which at that are currently 3, I'm very happy with. And something that I tried and I really failed at it. So definitely the patience and what the teachers have, I have no new appreciation for it, and Ross is really good at it.
Excellent. Patricia, can you speak to your children's different learning styles and how do they interface with the curriculum?
Yeah, so my daughter that is on kindergarten, like she was, it's kind of funny, but she was never a big fan of working hard for learning. She's more like I want to have fun all the time. So no, it's really interesting because I feel like the Ross teachers, you guys are so aware, each child and what their needs are, that from a day to another, she comes home and she gets a piece of paper and they're learning the letters, right? So I feel like because so many people came to us this year, every kid is in a different level, and you guys were able to understand that even 2 kids are a little bit more advanced than others. And at first my daughter was kind of like, oh, I don't want to go to school because some kids know the letters, I don't. And once this problem was solved, I feel the teacher brings so much fun for them to learn, between doing artwork, with the letters, and pretending they are writing letters to whoever they want to write to, even though they don't really know how to write real words. She's having she's having fun, it's not that she's going there oh my God, I gotta remember this is an A and this is a B, this is a C. She's having fun. So I feel like when she comes home, I can see that she wants to play school and she wants to write letters to her friends, and I can see how excited she is about learning, right? It's a lot of fun, and she's happy, she's getting used to go to school and to learn more. And now she's reading tiny little books, those dot books. And she's super, super proud that she can read a book. And she last week went to school and she wanted to read a book in front of her friends. And, they're really thriving. She's really thriving. So is my son on 2nd grade. I feel like it's the curriculum is a little bit more, of course it's fun, but I feel like it's deeper, of course, because of their age. And he's loving it. The fact that you guys have this spiral curriculum, and he's learning about space right now, and he's obsessed about the solar system, and he likes going there, and he likes telling his friends how much he knows, and he helps the teacher. So I feel like the teacher makes them participate so much into what they know. And how can you teach your friends? Not only I'm the teacher, but not only me can teach, how can you teach your friends as well? Right? It's just amazing to me to see how Ross gets to have every single student really participating and having a voice. This is very special. I mean,
yeah. I would add to that the idea that we teach to the multiple intelligences and respect whatever the native intelligence is of each child, and drawing that out, like you were saying, the teachers know how to connect individually with each child. I think what I was missing in my school background was anyone acknowledging my talents. And instead they were judging me on things that I wasn't good at, math and, things that didn't reward me. And so to see it as a parent for my children, where their talents are rewarded and obviously they're pushed in, to learn things that they haven't mastered yet, I think is a really valuable lesson. And I think you, Ashley, you and Patricia were both saying, your children come home excited to continue that learning. And I think that comes from that intrinsic reward for what you do well is understood by the teachers. And then the curriculum kind of draws out more and it demands more in a way that feels fun and rewarding. Does that make sense to everyone?
That does make sense. It's true. It's true.
I mean, it's by design. It's totally
Yeah.
by design.
I would like to add another thing that I find absolutely remarkable, having had the pleasure of having adult children who went through the lower campus, the lower school curriculum, is the level of retention that they have. My son's 20. He's a 20-year-old young man, and he will sit at the dinner table and discuss with Calliope and Maxwell what it is they're learning. And because something about the spiral curriculum, he remembers exactly that moment. They remember because it's high concept and interactive, and it's not just a bullet point of rote memory. The interactive nature of it goes with them. They carry it with them. It's looking like the rest of their lives. She went on now. She's in curriculum development and teaches 5th grade in LA. She refers back to her time at Ross. She's like, well, in 5th grade at Ross. And it's phenomenal because it engages the younger children. It's interactive. The curriculum is interactive.
Well, it's interesting you
well.
say that because I've talked in previous virtual sessions about moments in the curriculum like Maya Day for the 7th graders, or the Islamic banquet for the 8th graders, or City States game for the 9th graders. And the whole community celebrates with that class when they have a curricular event, or when the 7th graders do Julius Caesar, the school, different members of the community might come to see them. So there are these moments that we all re-celebrate every time they happen for a new class. And I think that's really unique, but it also conceptually comes back to the idea that 12th grade, for instance, is not part of the spiral of cultural history. It's a recapitulation of all of time in the context of the evolution of consciousness. So what they're doing in 12th grade is going back and drawing on something that happened in 1st grade, and drawing on something that happened in 5th grade, and drawing on something that happened in 8th grade and 9th grade, and synthesizing that in a way that is preparing our students to go forward and become problem-solving, productive global citizens. And I think that's not to be undervalued, the fact that the whole community, like you said, remembers that point in the curriculum. It is concretized for them by seeing it happen again for other students, and then it's drawn upon in senior year as a way of reliving. And I think that's pretty powerful. And I like what you said about the depth of it, that it's a full concept, and it's depth and contextualized. Does anyone else want to add to that? I was going to ask, sorry, did I cut someone off? I was going to ask, what do you feel the access is like? I mean, I know that this is a different year and that we can't have classroom visits and in-person meetings, but in terms of access to the teachers and to the administration, how do you as parents feel about that access?
For our kids, I think it's amazing. When we started Ross, we started them right when they turned 2. And we weren't sure how it was going to go, but the school was very flexible. They actually turned out, we were going to do a few days a week, half days, and just to socialize them. And it turned out our kids really, really like school. And Ross was able to accommodate changing to fit that schedule. When we did the tour with Liz, actually, I still remember our son Jackson walked over to the paint station before I even realized that there was a smock on him and he was busy painting. And like they're so receptive to the kids' needs and as well as our own. If we have concerns, the head of school is very accessible, as well as all the teachers. We've had no problems at all.
Cool. Patricia, how about you? How do you feel? I know that you're coming in as a family during COVID and you hadn't had last year to measure it by, but how do you feel about the access to the teachers and the administration?
They're always there for us. I feel like, if you have a question or something happens, they're there for you. They're very accommodating. They're very communicative. Like it's very easy to talk to them. Yeah, we didn't have the whole experience of being in the classroom and everything, but I feel it's if we need something, we mail them, or with Sophia, the teacher is there. If she ever needs to say something, Sophia is my daughter in kindergarten, sorry, and it's very easy. I'm very happy with that.
Excellent. And what about connection with other parents? How do you feel the community? Do you feel the community as a whole is a good connection for parents, for you to each other?
Right now, I mean, in my case, I know in my case it's a little different, because we started in a way that we cannot really meet parents right now, right? But what I heard from a few parents that have been around for a while, I heard it's a beautiful community. They're always doing events together. They're always in school together. I heard they have those lunches that you go once a week, that you can go meet parents and have lunch with your child. So I just feel, because of the situation where right now, we don't have as much of that, but we do have a little bit. They're every classroom have their own chatting group, and we're always talking. Parents are trying to get the kids to an outdoor a park or the beach after school, so there's always who wants to go. So even though in our restrict situation, I can feel a very beautiful sense of community and parents wanting to try to get together in a safe way for now. So I believe in a regular year, in normal life conditions, this is probably super, super, super special.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that. My favorite is the parent meeting at Barron's Cove. It's a parents' night out, and it's I think it's the second Thursday a month or something like that. And it's just a chance to socialize and sort of decompress, versus the parent association meeting or the parent forums, or under normal circumstances, the classroom visits. So it's many levels at which many points of entry, I guess, I think is important, because not every parent has the time or interest in volunteering for the PA or doing events or the Thanksgiving lunch or teacher appreciation week or what have you, but definitely wants to know other parents. And so I think there are lots of opportunities for that. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I would agree with the Barron's Cove thing. I mean, we started going, it was a lot of fun, and you meet people at different, for us it's higher grades, but different grades in their process. So you kind of get an idea of what's coming up, as well as meet some really nice people. I would also say that this year is different, because certainly for the pre-K class, it's kind of a drop off and a lineup. So you don't want to linger. So we haven't been able to meet as many parents, but we still talk to the parents from last year that are still in the class, and, and do socializing, outside distance socializing. But it's amazing the bonds you build with that, when you are able to take a pause and, maybe spend some time in especially the early childhood classes, that you meet the parents and the kids and build long-term friendships.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. The other question I have for you as parents is, we do have small class sizes, and for some people that poses a challenge socially. So how do you feel the small class size serves your child, and maybe the core values concept rolls into this as well? Does anyone feel like it's challenging to have such small classes, or is it a benefit?
I'll go, Ashley. Hi. So for me, it's been amazing. Both Calliope and Maxwell are thriving in the small class. It's not, neither class is so small that they either of them seem to feel limited, but there also doesn't seem to be any barriers because of the size of the class. There's no clique. The whole class seems bonded. They sit around and they discuss. Again, I'm not in the classroom, so I don't know, but they discuss the different people in their class and what they do. They are very familiar already with the other students, and they care about them. One of Calliope's classmates has lost a dog. It's an issue, she talks about it. So they're very aware of their classmates and they care about them. So there is a bonding there that brings everyone, to life, which allows for a lot of compassion just for each other's humanity. And there's not a lot of room for to care about people's differences. Instead, people's differences is what's desirable and what the kids like and enjoy. And they quite enjoy the fact that so-and-so is like this and that they can ask this person for support and that. And so in my experience, they bond with their entire class in a way that doesn't necessarily happen in larger class groups, but the class is large enough that there's not been a lot of, neither of my children feel lacking in their social department.
Good to hear.
I would agree with that. I mean, our kids are, for Avery, like I said, he's a little bit more shy, having a smaller class, but big enough. She has the confidence to speak in front of a group. I think we're 10 people, as well as for the younger classes, we have 2 teachers. So the hands-on experience, no one gets kind of lost in the shuffle. So I think that's amazing. At the same time, because of COVID this year, we wanted the kids in the same class just to limit our exposure to risk. But we did ask for them to be separated as much as possible so they aren't playing together all the time, because with twins, you want them to build their own personality, their own friendships. And they're able to do that. And the teacher says they play great and they're able to build friendships outside of the 2 of them. So they're again, it comes back to really accommodating to kind of unique situations and needs.
Patricia, do you see a change since you were coming from a different school before? Do you see a difference in the social aspect for your children with sort of the arrangement we have at Ross, the class sizes or what have you?
I love the fact that the classes are smaller. I feel I agree with all of you, like that there is more connection with the kids, like they really know each other and they really care for each other. There is a special bond between them, and academically too. Like I feel they're more focused. The teacher has less kids to work with, so I feel like they can bring more focus into each child's needs. So for me, like I actually really like the fact that the school, like we came from the city, which my son had probably 27 or 28 kids in his classroom, and now he has how many kids we have in second grade right now? 8, I believe. Mm-hmm. 8 or 9. It's just beautiful. I feel like they're really thriving like I haven't seen before. Like they really like the focus that the teacher has on all of them. And coming from my son is very shy. Like I know he talks a lot, but like in the beginning he can be very reserved and very shy. And I feel the fact that the classes are smaller, he doesn't have like that fear of like, oh, I'm gonna go express myself to like 28 people. No, I only have 8 other kids here. So in my case, it's beautiful. I haven't, like I said, like my kids are really thriving right now.
Good to hear. I have a similar experience, have had a similar experience with my son when he entered 6th grade from a different school where the class size was much bigger. It felt like a little family that he was, sort of entering into with the other 6th graders. And my feeling at the time was the the core values are so strong and so firmly reinforced in every aspect of their day that you have no choice but to abide by them. And as such, it leads to appreciating, like Ashley was saying, each other's differences, acknowledging your uniqueness, acknowledging, you're good at this and you're good at this, and can I ask you for help? And, there's just such a mutual respect. And I was fearful that my son kind of wouldn't find his group, but his group was the whole class. And they really do see each other's light and really appreciate the individuality of each student, which I think is so great. I think it's easy for kids to click and, to get into cliques and kind of branch off and judge each other and kind of create an imaginary narrative about who the other group is and what they do. But I think in, this sort of intimate setting, it really facilitates very strong bonds.
Yeah. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about, how teachers highlight the strengths of the children. So that it's kind of is a bit of a full circle there. Because the teachers are able to highlight the strengths, the students recognize the strengths, and then it's always celebrated. Like, oh, let's keep moving forward with this. It's never patted off to the side. So
Right.
that just occurred to me. I was like, oh gosh, it really is. It is like the full spectrum of positive reinforcement on so many different levels.
Well, taking that a step further, one of the interesting aspects of the curriculum that is not really at the top of sort of the hierarchy of awareness is that developmentally each stage is acknowledged. So for instance, in 6th grade, they learn about prophecy and religious leaders, and they learn about, for instance, Confucius and Taoism and how those philosophies developed, why people felt that they had a different idea religiously than other people, how they were invested in their convictions. And it actually is a leadership model for the 6th graders, as they are at the top of in the previous structure prior to COVID, they were at the top of the lower school hierarchy, and it gave them confidence to go out and be leaders. And that is very intentional. And then there are themes in the kindergarten about transitions and transitions between seasons and moments. And it also relates to the fact that the kindergartner educationally is making the transition between home and play and school and academics. In the senior year, they are shown a building that is so inspiring and artwork that's inspiring, and it holds them to a standard that they're going to have to continue in college. It's a precursor to that respect and understanding of the sacredness of their spaces, the importance of inhabiting those spaces as a thinker and a learner and as a leader. And it's all intentional. It's all threaded into the way the curriculum was written by the founding mentors. So I find that so fascinating. I also love that when they're 16, they're studying rebellion. I mean, how perfect is that? Not be more well suited.
Yeah.
To coincide with that time period, but Joan of Arc, right? So
Yeah.
It's very intentional. I guess too, at this point, I want to hear from the parents who are on the call listening, who might not know about Ross School yet and would like to ask some questions. So feel free to unmute yourselves and ask away. Come on, David, I know you have a question in there somewhere.
I'm David Goldberger. My son is actually in kindergarten at Ross. We came out here during the pandemic, and we're sort of thinking through the staying out here permanently. And I would love to hear from some of the upper school parents. I guess, Ashley, you have a child or two that have gone through the upper school. Perhaps a few questions around kind of how Ross prepared them for college and beyond, what the college application, what the guidance through the college application process was like. And then I think you mentioned you had a student who transferred to another boarding school along the way. So what was behind that decision, and how did Ross prepare for that as well?
Okay, so my kids are but my oldest daughter, who's now 24 and a college graduate, Ross was right there. She ended up at Pepperdine, which is a top 50 university. It was between Pepperdine and Tulane. And she went from 4th grade, because that's when Ross began. So she was at Hampton Day, but then it became Ross. So she went all the way through, and between her and her other classmates, like there was that bond, and they are all doing so well. They hold their education in high regard. Ross really goes to the mat to make sure the kids, they don't just check up when they're applying for school. There's not a checklist like the GPA and this, like it's above and beyond. They have these kids go in their college application. It's a portfolio. Right? What I'm looking at my senior daughter right now, she's got a website. She's got a this. She's got, I mean, the sky's the limit on her opportunities right now in this pandemic. And for as difficult as the pandemic was, Ross was right there. Her mentors, her teachers, I have so much gratitude to them, because she's a very strong-willed and formidable young woman. And they have walked with her through this process and given her everything that she needed. Since she was a young girl, they're like, we're going to work with what we've got here. And so that's been incredible. Gideon decided to go to boarding. He's a very measured human being, and he's fabulous. But he transitioned to Deerfield, which is a top boarding school, without any trouble. His only issue with Deerfield was the rote learning. He felt that it stifled his education a little bit in certain ways, because there was a lot of memorize, repeat, memorize, repeat. He's now at Brown, where it's back to much more of the Ross conceptual, hands-on, interactive learning. But Deerfield for sure, because there were 2 kids from his 8th grade class, but they love Ross students. Like a lot of these boarding schools love Ross students. He's a big tennis player. He was just that young man. There was something on the horizon. He needed to see what it was. He needed to see it. So it was kind of like if someone whispered, oh, by the way, there might be gold on the West Coast. So he did it. And that was it. He does not regret that, but he treasures his first, up till 8th grade. He treasures it at Ross. He still has friends. He still remembers the experience. When they get to start going on M term again, as I think they start in 6th grade now down in Costa Rica. I mean, it's phenomenal. And my children have loved growing up out here versus, I suppose, the city, but they've thrived, right? And Ross is part of the larger community. I don't know what other questions you have, but I got lucky. I didn't know what we were doing when we got into it, but it worked out really, really well. And I feel like there's a lot of parents that would say the same thing.
Thank
And
you.
I can answer the question about college preparation and how that process works. The college prep process starts in 9th grade, and it's not an intensive kind of thing. It's more, let's have a conversation and figure out what you really love. What is your story? And we find that most students' stories start when they're around 13, and they develop an interest in something very specific that's very important to them. So for my son, I know this doesn't sound sophisticated in the grand scheme of things, but he's very interested in motorbikes. So when he was 13, he bought a motorbike and resold it for a profit after tuning it up a little bit, watching some YouTube videos. And he continued that process with bigger and bigger bikes until he was up to adult size bikes and, making a couple $1,000s per sale. So he's done this, I think he's done, 16 or 17 sales, purchases and sales, tuning up, sometimes using them in the meantime. So he basically created a business out of it. And then his friends consulted with him, and every time they go to buy a bike, they consult with him. He's now developed that into his senior project, but that started when he was 13. He bought a small bike, and the whole thing kind of took off. He took over my whole garage. I don't have any garage space anymore. So now he's a senior. Part of his story, because he's applying to schools that have to do with entrepreneurship, part of his story is, yes, when I was 13, I bought a bike. and this is what happened. And so that whole trajectory is sort of measured in the college process. Is something that's very important. You know, it's more about their passion, and then they want to know what you did with it. So from that, he started a lawn care business. He's done asphalt sealing. I know this sounds really random, but he's an entrepreneur. He has sold ice cream by boat. He's done food delivery by boat. You know, he kind of figures out a little market and capitalizes on it. And right now it's small potatoes, but 5 years from now, trust me, it's going to be, you know, larger scale. And so that's exciting to watch. And my point in mentioning all this is that that story that starts when they're around 13 is acknowledged when they're in ninth grade. They revisit, they kind of continue, and are shepherded, you know, in a way to continue to tell that story, continue to prove that story, expand on that story. And then in some cases, it becomes a senior project. And then they go into a college interview and they are an expert at something that they love. And it's about passion. So it's not just about, you know, he's remodeling a motorcycle, modifying it for his senior project. There's a historical context for it. There's an artistic concept, you know, there's a technological concept, obviously engineering. He's going to have to write about it. He may build a website to describe his process. He may, you know, he's welding things. There are a lot of components, I guess, is the point. And this becomes their total story. It's not just about checking boxes, like you said, and test grades and what have you. It's not about the SAT, especially now. That's being more widely acknowledged.
Right.
But I think Ross is also great at finding the right fit for the student. And while every school loves to name drop, right? We all love to have Ivy placements and enrollments. However, I think it's more important to us as a school to find that right fit so that the cultivated learners that we have been growing since day one or whenever they started continue to be lifelong learners. And it's not just going to a college that's going to, you know, be a bigger name on their resume. It's about finding what you love and running with that and continuing to learn. At least that's my perspective. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Well, I'm getting all excited again. It's Ashley. I'm like, oh yeah. No, because it does. Ross really gives the children their own autonomy so that they can cultivate these special interests and desires, and then make it applicable in their bigger lives as they move on to whatever university. And the kids are not, you know, they don't end up in, you know, because of this autonomy and because of their self-awareness, but their self-propelled responsibility that they have had, that Ross anticipates. They ask the children to step up on their own behalf. It's not up to a parent or somebody else to do it. The kids get to college and they're pretty well prepared. I mean, I haven't really witnessed any from my own children and then from all of my kids' friends that where they go to college and unless it's reasons that have nothing to do with education, they get to college and they can handle themselves pretty well. Like their autonomy has been honored. So it is very cool the way the school absolutely, like, they develop that conceptual portfolio from a young age. But ninth grade, they do stand by those kids. As they start separating from us, the school is right there for them to then give them that lift or foundation. It's pretty cool. It's awesome. I love it. I love it. I love the lower campus. The fact that it opened back up it's such a magical place. The kids are never going to forget it for the rest of their lives. It is a really special time. So, okay. That's all. I won't be a screen hog.
No, it's great. It's great to hear, because this is how I feel, but also this is my job. So it's
Right.
It's nice to hear other parents who've experienced it, not just, you know, not just today or last
Mhm.
year, but really over a range of time. So I appreciate your perspective. Are
Thank
there
you.
any other questions?
Thank you for those personal and inspiring stories. It sounds pretty exciting to think about. As I think about my own son, 12 years from now, it's a lot of stuff to get excited about.
Yeah.
Cool. Does anyone else have any other questions? Or anything else to add? We can wrap it up in a couple minutes.
Hi, it's Christine. Can you hear me okay? I have a mask on.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, great. So, like Patricia and David and Langdon, sorry, we are going to be moving out of the city possibly and making the transition with a young child. He'll be 3 next fall. So I'm just curious about how your kids handled the transition as a whole and like Ross's involvement in that. Like, did you make the move shortly prior to the school year starting, and or was it pretty much like simultaneously?
Patricia, do you want to take that question?
Sure. Well, for us, like we kind of make the move, like I would say last minute, but we are considering for a while. You know, like we moved here back in March because of, you know, the whole pandemic. And, you know, I feel because the kids already knew here, like, you know, it's our home. It was our second home. But like, you know, it's not that we're moving the kids to a brand new place. I already knew no one. They didn't know the place. So they're somehow a little comfortable where we were. And when we decided to move them to the school here, like we spoke to them, we're talking about, you know, the school. I went on the website and they had like, I feel like, you know, virtual tours on the site. So I showed my kids. My son was super excited about it. And like from day one, he's like, oh, I want to move to Ross. It is so cool. But he's also he's a very easygoing kid. Like I feel like he gets along everywhere he goes. My daughter had a little bit of an issue, I think, because she's also super young and she had like really good friends in high school in the city. But at day 2 here, she already made a best friend. And I feel like because we spoke so much to them about the move and why we're moving and how beautiful it was. Like I made all the positive, like, you know, I spoke how beautiful they were, like in this beautiful camp where they had nature around and the classrooms were smaller, and you know, instead of like walking to school, I just made it fun for them. So my daughter had a little bit of an issue, not because like I don't feel it was because of like, how do I say, like, you know, it was a brand new school, because now every summer they go to different camp. I feel it was because, you know, like she didn't knew her old friends weren't there, correct? So but like at day 3 she already had a best friend, so you know, like that was it, you know. And I feel you as a parent, like, you know, by talking to your kids and by giving the strong support, they will probably adapt very easily. Kids are very resilient, like, you know, I always heard that from other people, and I realized that myself, like, you know, it might take a week or 2, but they'll be fine. And I feel like every Ross, everyone that works at Ross also gives you tons of support. My daughter, she still does that once in a while. Like, but for the first 2 weeks, she didn't want to get out of the car. And we have Mr. Chris, which, you know, he's the life skills teacher in school, and he's absolutely wonderful. I think he's he's a gem in Ross. I feel like he gets every single child. He's funny. He gets involved in their problems, and he makes it fun. So the kids want to just like run out of the car and go to school, right? So you'll be in great hands. Your kids are going to be fine. You know, talk to them and get, you know, and trust Ross. They're going to be totally fine. My kids are super happy now.
Great, thank you.
David, do you want to answer that as well, since you also, you know, were new to the community?
Sure. So, you know, we, very similar to Patricia, we've had a weekend place out here for a while. And in March, we moved out here permanently, well, not permanently, but to get away from the city. We did virtual school at his, he was in junior kindergarten last year, which was really challenging for a five-year-old. And our son's a very vocal child and very social, and just sitting there on mute in a Zoom was absolute torture for him. And so we knew that this year, kind of going into the year, we wanted to be in an in-person education. It wouldn't, for his personality at his age, it just wouldn't be right to be virtual. and our school in the city was going to open up full time in person, but then we had all these concerns about about what it would be like just given the pandemic and other things. And so we had actually gone through the Ross camp this summer, and Dylan had an amazing time there and absolutely sort of fell in love with Mr. Chris and the whole team, and just absolutely loved it. And we sort of happened to apply and got very, very lucky that there was extra seats available for the kindergarten here in at the lower school, and he's just had a magical year so far. He's just really thrived. The integration, the indoor and the outdoor and nature has been wonderful. He's reading, he's writing. There's a strong focus on arts and crafts and drawing, which has been interesting. I think it's partly because it's one way that it's one way that the kids can kind of play and hang out, but they can each have their own sort of drawing at their desks. And so it eliminates some of the contact of playing with the toys a bit, I think. But as a result, because he's doing so much drawing, his penmanship has just blossomed dramatically. I mean, just in a few short months, his writing is infinitely better. And he's learning Chinese, which is really exciting. He comes home and teaches us some new words in Chinese each Monday, Wednesday, Fridays when he has his class. And so and he also does this after school program, which is a multi-sport class with his wellness teacher. So he absolutely loves it, and we couldn't be any happier. We love the community, love the people we've met so far. The only downside has been because of this pandemic, there's been less opportunity to gather with the parents at Barron's Cove or some of these other events. But we're hopeful that things will sort of normalize once we get on the other side of this. So overall, I can't say enough positive things about our experience at kindergarten so far. And so we're super happy with everything we've experienced and feel very fortunate. And Dylan kind of wakes up every day excited to go to school. Actually, yesterday when we picked him up, he told us he was really unhappy when he got in the car, and we asked him why he was so unhappy. He said it was because his day was over and he didn't want to go home from school. So I think that sort of says enough.
I can picture him saying that. He's very expressive. Probably one of the most fun interviews I had this summer. It was very fun. That's great. Thank you for that. Are there any other questions? Any other last comments anyone wants to share? No pressure. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining today. Thank you to our awesome parents for sharing your experiences, and for the parents who joined us today. Appreciate everybody being here.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thank you.
And my email address is in the chat if anybody wants it, or admissions@ross.org. If you have any questions afterwards, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much.
Great, Liz. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.